Good morning. It looks like we're getting started this morning. Welcome to worship at First Universalist Church. Before we hear our beautiful prelude this morning, I just want to remind folks, this past week I reached out to folks in the congregation to ask you if you would take a picture of your chalice from home. Emma and I are hoping to use these in our worship service moving forward. We're hoping to use these in our newsletter coming up. So if you have a chance today during the service to take a picture of your chalice from home, please send a copy to myself and or to Emma. We'd love to see that. Also, another reminder, today at the end of our service, we're staying here for coffee hour. No need to go anywhere else. So if you need, we usually take a 10-minute break and settle in, grab some coffee, do whatever we need to do. But coffee hour will be happening here this morning in the same room. So let's just take a deep breath together. I feel like I'm always inviting us to do that, just to take a breath together. As we settle into our worship service this morning, let us enjoy our prelude from our fabulous music director, Brock Chesholt. Well, my goodness, if you weren't awake yet, I'm sure you are awake now. Brock, that piece was beautiful. Thank you so much. Good morning and welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. Whoever you are, we welcome you here this morning. Wherever you come from, we welcome you here this morning. Whomever you love, we welcome you here this morning. And whatever abilities and whichever disabilities you embrace and you have, we welcome you here this morning. We welcome all of you. It is good, it is good, it is good to be together this morning. If you are here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. We have a visitors form that can be found in our chat. And please click on it and fill it out at your convenience. We'd love to be able to offer you a more broad welcome outside of this virtual sacred space. And as folks have already been doing, we have been offering a welcome to one another in the chat. So please, I want to invite everyone to pop into the chat. Please offer a greeting, offer a hello, how are you? Oh, we're here. So just pop into the chat here or here or here, or wherever it is on your screen. And please just let us know that you're here. It is good to be together. Welcome to worship at First Universalist. This morning we are singing a hymn that may not quite be as familiar to all of us, but it is a beautiful hymn and sort of celebrates our interconnectedness. It's hymn number 175. We celebrate the web of life. Let us join hearts and voices together this morning, recognizing that even as we are singing muted in our own homes, we are creating a song across our city of Rochester, the country, and the world. So let us sing together hymn number 175. We celebrate the web of life.
Mattering by Mark Hicks, originally written anonymously by a gay high school student and adapted. My father asked if I am gay. I asked, does it matter? He said, no, not really. I said, yes. He said, get out of my life. I guess it mattered. My friend asked, why do I talk about race so much? I asked, does it matter? He said, no, not really. I told him yes. He said, "You need to get that chip off your shoulder." I guess it mattered. My neighbor asked why I put that ramp up to my front door. I said, "Does it matter?" He said, "No, not really." I told him because it made my life easier. He said, "Is there any way to make that less obvious?" I guess it mattered. A member of my church asked why I liked gospel music. I asked, "Does it matter?" She said, "No, not really." I told her that it connects me to my Southern Christian childhood. She said, "I think you're in denial about your oppression." I guess it mattered. My God asked me, "Do you love yourself?" I said, "Does it matter?" She said, "Yes." I said, "How can I love myself? I am gay, Latino, disabled, and a Christian in a hostile climate." She said, "That is the way I made you. Nothing will ever matter again." Come, let us worship together in this community where who you are matters. As we light our chalice at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. Two Junes ago, our church chose to enter an intentional partnership with the Spiritus Christi Anti-Racism Coalition, or SPARC. In their words, a civil rights heritage site. This morning, we share our offering with the Black Community Focus Fund, a fund tied to the work of SPARC and to the ongoing work of Black self-determination. As you give this morning, you are giving to an organization that values Black lives and leadership. You are giving generously to our community and to the good work of fighting racism in its many forms, including disenfranchisement of economic opportunities. To give, please click the link in the chat to give online to First Universalist Church and indicate that this gift is for our social justice plate offering, or feel free to send a check to the church. Thank you in advance for your generosity.
Beautiful. Thank you, gathered here quartet. What a joy to hear from you all this morning. Our story this morning is Just Ask. Be different, be brave, be you. Written by Sonia Sotomayor. Wow, what a story this will be. And illustrated by Rafael Lopez. There are pictures of both of them on the screen. If you have any little ones with you who would like to come and see our story, please invite them to draw near. Or also, if you just want to pay extra attention, we'll have some slides for you to be able to see some of the gorgeous pictures that Rafael Lopez has put together for us this morning for our story. Our story begins like this. Hi, I'm Sonia. My friends and I are planting a garden. Gardens are magical places. Thousands of plants bloom together, but every flower, every berry, and every leaf is different. Each has a different smell, different color, different shape, and different purpose. Some flowers need lots of sunlight. Others thrive in the shade. Some have to be trimmed regularly, while others are better off left alone. Some trees and flowers are more fragile and others are more hardy. Kids are all different too. Some of us are in a hurry and others take more time. Some of us seem shy and quiet while others are chatty and loud. Some of our differences are easy to spot. Others take longer to notice. Each of us grows in our own way. So if you are curious about other kids, just ask. Not everyone's comfortable answering questions about themselves, but I don't mind. What am I doing? Several times a day, I prick my finger to measure the sugar in my blood, and I give myself shots of medicine called insulin. I do this because I have diabetes, and my body doesn't make insulin naturally like other people's. Even though this can sometimes hurt, I gather all of my courage to do it to be healthy. Do you ever need to take medicine to be healthy? I do. My name is Raphael, and I have asthma, which means I sometimes have trouble breathing. When that happens, I take a break and I use an inhaler with medicine to make breathing easier. Quiet time helps me slow down and catch my breath. My inhaler is like a tool to help my body. Do you use a tool to help your body? I'm Anthony, and I use a wheelchair to get around. Even though I can't run with my legs, I can go super fast. How do you get from place to place? My name is Madison, and my guide dog, Lucky, helps me get places safely because I'm blind. My friend Arturo is blind too. He uses a cane to get around. Even though we can't see, we strengthen our other senses and notice lots of details others may miss. We can hear with our ears, smell with our noses, and feel with our hands. How do you use your senses? I'm Vijay. I learn about the world differently because I can see, but I can't hear. I'm deaf. Most of the time, I communicate with people using my face and hands through sign language. It's cool to know another language. I also love reading and writing. What about you? I'm Bianca, and I have dyslexia. So I have to work really hard and take my time when I am reading and writing words. Sometimes I use computer programs to help me. I love learning by doing things. My imagination is full of ideas, and I'm very good at making art from the pictures I see in my mind. Are you really good at something? I'm great at dinosaurs. I know all about them. I'm Jordan, and I have autism. Organizing and counting all my toy dinosaurs again and again makes me feel calm. My classmate Tiana also has autism, but it's different for her. She doesn't talk, but I like to talk. I especially like to talk about dinosaurs. What do you like to talk about? For me, listening comes more easily than talking. And I'm a really good listener. My name is On, and I speak with a stutter. So I sometimes repeat a word or get stuck when I try to say it. It may take me a little longer to express myself, and sometimes I'm too shy to talk, but I understand everything that's going on. Do you ever wonder if people understand you? I do. My name is Julia. Sometimes I wiggle or make sounds that I can't control because I have Tourette's syndrome. People may look at me funny because they think I am not paying attention or just acting out, but it's not true. I am listening. I don't always like having to explain. It frustrates me, but it helps when I tell people that it's just what my body does. Do you ever feel frustrated? My name is Manuel, and I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's also called ADHD. I can get frustrated when I really feel the need to move around, even though I'm supposed to sit still. When my teachers and friends are patient with me, if I forget something or get distracted, I can get myself back on track. What's helpful to you? I'm Nolan. It's helpful to me when the food I eat has a clear label that says it is nut-free because I am allergic to nuts. They can make me so sick that I would have to go to the hospital if I ate any, even by accident. So I always tell people about my allergy and ask if any food has nut allergies. Speaking up keeps me healthy. How do you use your voice? I love to sing and I love to talk. I love to make new friends and be included. I am Grace. I was born with Down syndrome. Kids like me with Down syndrome have an extra building block called a chromosome in our bodies. But we are all different from each other too. I can do almost anything any other kid can do, though learning new things can take some time. One way I learn is to ask questions. What helps you learn? It's me, Sarah, again. I ask questions too. When something seems different or new, I just ask my parents or my teachers, and they help me to understand, especially if my friends don't feel ready to explain. This is what I've learned. Imagine if all of the plants in this garden were exactly the same. Like, what if we could only grow peas? That would mean no strawberries or cucumbers or carrots. It might also mean no trees or roses or sunflowers. Just like in our garden, all the ways we are different make our neighborhood, our whole world really more interesting and fun. And just like all of these plants, each of us has unique powers to share with the world and to make it more interesting and richer. What will you do with your powers? Dear ones, this morning we are here to talk about disability justice and to move towards disability justice. And so in this spirit, let us honor the multiple powers that are present here in this space and in this community. Dear ones, I want to invite you now into this reverent time of sharing in the joys and sorrows of this gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to just listen from a more heart-centered place and space. I love to just invite into my mind sometimes during this ritual the image of all of us in all of our various places and spaces, putting a hand to our heart and getting in touch with our hearts during this important ritual time. It just helps me to feel more grounded in this time when we are doing this ritual so far apart from one another. As I place stones into a bowl of water, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. And I'll invite you, if you feel so called, to just type your joys and sorrows into the chat. I will do my best to read them as we go along, that we may hear and read the joys and sorrows from our community gathered here. Oh, I hear a joy from Michael and Kelly Scott that daughter Erin is coming to visit today, post-COVID test. Well, we are thinking of Erin and wishing her safe journeys and thinking of your family. Nancy Gady shares, I believe, a joy. I received a long-awaited email from my cousin, Julie. Thank goodness she checked her old email address. Glad you all are back in touch. A joy from Lois Baum. Her sister, Pam, is finally able to Zoom. Our first together since nearly a year ago, their first get-together. Well, wonderful. Glad you both are reconnected. Wonderful. Ericka shares that she got her first order from her new business. Sharing with you in that joy, Ericka. Ezekiel submitted his paperwork to return to school. Would love some positive thoughts as I wait for the school's decision. Ezekiel, we are keeping you in our thoughts and just holding you in our hearts for a good outcome there, for the best outcome for you. From Steve Farrington, excited to be returning to Brazil, be with Antonio. Joy. It is sad that my spouse is still stuck in immigration limbo for now. And Steve, we are so glad you were able to get back to Antonio, and we are also keeping Antonio in our hearts and in our thoughts as we move forward, hoping that we can have some resolution there. From Marty Eggers, a sorrow that COVID is keeping our families apart for the holidays. I think we're all sitting with some of that grief, with some of that sorrow. From Connie Volk, looking forward to improved vision after cataract surgery this week. Connie, we are thinking of you as you go into surgery this week and sending good healing thoughts your way, sharing in your hope. From Julie Kleinhans, a sorrow for my brother-in-law, BJ, who passed away due to COVID last week, and for not being able to comfort my sister in person. Julie, we are holding you and your sister in our deepest hearts, and just thinking of y'all. This is hard. This is a really hard time to be away from our families. From Johanna, so joyful and grateful that some family was able to come and be with me. From Beth Ayers, a joy, played tic-tac-toe and hangman and pigpen via Zoom last Sunday with our 7-year-old grandson for the first time. A joy in the connection. A joy from Emma Berry, our office administrator, to enjoy a mug of my favorite hot cocoa before service today from a local small business run by a friend. Joining in the joy of a warm beverage with you. A joy from MJ that her brother-in-law is running to become mayor of Burlington, Vermont in a 4-way race, at least so far. Wow, we'll be thinking of him, MJ. What a joy. And a joy from Brock that he'll be playing a live stream recital next Sunday, November 22nd at 6:30 p.m. More info to come in order to watch. Brock, please share with us how we can share that out. We'd love to join you in that streaming recital. We always love to hear more of your music. A joy from Nancy Gady. It was good to see folks in the parking lot at church yesterday during food gathering. We are just finding fabulous ways to be together with one another wherever we can be. And I will drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys and the sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. I just wish for you all to see this. It's kind of full of water, but we just have this, full bowl today. We have so many joys and sorrows that we are holding in this community right now. It's just such an important ritual. So I want to just invite us now to, draw our keys away from the keyboard, to just take a moment to take a deep breath together and get centered before our prayer this morning. Relax, get comfortable in your seats. If it feels good to you, you can close your eyes. If it feels better to you to soften your gaze or to keep your eyes wide open, all different forms of prayer and meditation are welcome here in this community. I really want to lift up today, actually, a prayer from another voice, a prayer from Lama Rod Owens, who is a Buddhist Lama. And yesterday he released a prayer for Diwali, which is an Indian festival of light that took place yesterday. But it feels like this prayer is really speaking to us in this time period, in this season, and also in this time period as we are just sitting with so much joy and sorrow and such a mixture. So let us pray together. I am praying for the light today. When I say that I am praying for the light, what I mean is that I'm deciding to become the light. I also accept that there is darkness in the world. I understand that the darkness I see in the world is also the darkness I see in myself. There is no darkness in the world that does not also abide in some form in me. When I acknowledge the dark, I am also acknowledging that I could not know the blessing of light without first naming the darkness. Therefore, I will pray for and love the light. I will also pray for and love the darkness. Because whatever I choose to authentically love, I allow it to be free. I choose to let my darkness be free so it can stand next to the light or be next to the light. When they are being together, when they are coexisting, they will tell the true story of my life. And in that truth telling, I will accept both the light and the dark and know that the dark is only a place where the light has not yet learned to live. As I decide to become light, I am also praying that I develop the courage to learn to live in the dark places. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And this morning, I'm just going to invite us to enter into some silence. And actually, I want this to be a more natural entryway into silence, so we are not going to ring our bell as per usual. But let us just see where the silence takes us. Let us enter into it imperfectly, holding all that is, the light and the dark and the in-between. Let us join in this silence now. Amen. As we emerge from the silence, let us lift up gratitude for this rare time. Gratitude for the rare silence that we get to share in this virtual sacred space. Gratitude for our breath and gratitude for this practice. And we shall follow this practice by singing together our hymn of contemplation, a hymn around fear and freedom. I know this rose will open, hymn number 396.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will I know this rose will I know this rose will I know this fear will I know my fear will I know my soul will I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will I know this rose will open.
A reading from Reverend Teresa Inez Soto to the people who have mistaken freedom for liberation. To be free, you must embrace the breadth of your own existence without apology, even if they try to take it from you. You must know not that you can do whatever you want. You are not a kudzu vine eating entire hillsides for the purpose of feeding your own lush life. You must know instead that inside you are entire universes, milky blue, magenta, and gold, expanding. But to actually be free, you must know and you must fight for the entire universes inside of everyone else. Being free is not a license, but a promise. Dear ones, this morning we are talking about disability justice. And, rather than taking this time to listen to me, who is a temporarily able-bodied person, I figured I would actually spend the time I'd usually be preaching listening to the voices of folks in our community who live with disabilities. As Maxine Waters says she is reclaiming her time, I am happily conceding my time to folks in our congregation who live with disabilities. So we will hear first from Ericka Miller, who will talk a bit about disability justice. Ericka very generously spent some time a couple of weekends ago with me, masked and physically distant, rolling through our space and taking a look at where our building could actually be paying more attention to accessibility, where we could actually be embracing better accessibility in our building. I'm very grateful to her for that, and deeply grateful to her for her reflection this morning. And then we will also hear from Lisa Gwinner, a longtime member of this congregation with a beautiful singing voice, who will share a reflection about reframing the questions around disability. My deep gratitude to you both, Lisa and Ericka, for taking the time and space to share these important reflections with the congregation. So without further ado, I will turn our time over to them.
I want to start by explaining that disability rights and disability justice are actually two different concepts. Disability rights was the original idea that was kind of a solitary issue where disabled people and others fighting for the cause solely focused on disability rights, fighting for housing, fighting for transportation, those kinds of things. When it comes to disability justice, however, it's kind of evolved in ways that I really think it needed to. And now it's more of working to unravel ableism in society, working to change systems that allowed for this ableism to happen. And what do I mean by that? In the past, in our history in the US, we have had problems with white supremacy. We've had capitalism, issues with that led to stealing indigenous land, just general imperialism. And when it comes to disability justice, you're probably like, well, how does that even work together? How does that link up? Well, I'll tell you. In all of the tragedies in our country, we've ended up with people who have been impacted, whether physically or emotionally. And from there, we've had people who have developed disabilities, who through the generation have been born with disabilities, and that generational trauma continues down the line. What we don't do currently, and what we should be doing currently, is addressing those issues. In every single minority group, in every single identifiable group, there are disabled people. So why on earth wouldn't the disability community address these issues that other groups also have? Because we're the same, we're connected. There's intersectionality in every group. So when it comes to Black Lives Matter or fighting to get children out of cages, this is our community. We should be fighting for each other. And so what we're doing now, what we're starting to realize now, is disability justice is really more the way to go rather than disability rights, because this is not at all a single issue. And what we're seeing now, and what became very clear during Corona, is we've always had the systems to support people being at home. We just weren't using them. So that in itself is an ableist system keeping disabled people from thriving in the community. Because if all of a sudden people can work remotely, they can get, you know, a little bit more money to support themselves. They can have quicker access to services in the community. Why on earth weren't we using it to begin with? I can tell you from my own experience that while it's really hard to stay at home, this is the easiest time for my mental health that I've ever had for being able to work, because I no longer have to deal with all of the external issues with being mentally and physically disabled and trying to navigate the workplace. This is another example of how going forward, even past whatever it is that we decide for Corona, we can figure out what's right for everyone and how to keep everyone safe and make sure that it includes mental health as well. Because frankly, we don't do enough to make sure that people have access to services and supports. So, so I hope that just like that very basic framework of disability justice versus disability rights helps. I think for me, it helps me to understand the difference between the two for sure. When it comes to religious communities, you know, whatever it is, whether it's a Christian church to a Judaic temple, I think that disability justice is already intertwined, because mosques and temples and churches, they really help the community pick it up where society is lacking. So it's important that not only do religious institutions understand what's going on with the different communities, but they understand what supports are out there and what are not out there, because they're already the ones on the ground helping to begin with. So when you go to your traditional church and you see that they are doing food drives, or they're picking up supplies for homeless people or families that are struggling a little bit, think about what you can do to address other needs that are not met. Like, if the family you're trying to help has a disabled person, are you reaching out to independent living centers? Are you reaching out to medical supply stores, medical companies, to see if there's any way that they could help get the families back on their feet? If you're trying to help a family who has not so ideal living situation, are you then thinking down like an inventory of things that you could do to help them? Do they need a ramp? Do they need some kind of shower chair? So, you know, things like that. Does your religious organization have access to their building? Is there access throughout the building? There are disabled people through just about every congregation you can think of. But can they get into your building? Do they have a way to access your services? If not, it's really important that, although by the ADA, religious buildings are not required to be ADA compliant, if you want your congregation to feel like they belong there, it's really up to you and your community to figure out how to make that happen. No, you don't have to, but it's about being a welcoming and inviting community, and living by everyone wants to be here, belongs here. And so I just wanted to give you a little a few things to think about as you go out into the community. Look at it through the lens of a disabled person, and it does not have to necessarily be a person within a wheelchair, but any disability. And think, this space that I'm holding right now, would a disabled person feel comfortable here? And if not, what can you do to help the situation? It could be just as simple as going to the manager and asking them why this space is not accessible.
Good morning, friends. Often, when we see a person with a visible disability, we wonder why they are disabled. I suppose this is a normal reaction. We're curious as to what happened to them or what's wrong with them. Sometimes disabled people are asked what happened by complete strangers, but really, is a stranger entitled to know something so personal just because they're curious? I propose that the most important question about disability is not what happened to you. I've come to believe that to truly understand disability and disability justice, the questions need to be reframed. It seems to me that what happened is not only unimportant, it's intrusive, rude, and ableist. Asking what happened deflects our thinking away from what is really important, which is disability is real. According to Wikipedia, it is estimated that 15% of the world population is disabled. So 15 people in every 100 are disabled. It's really common. Disabled people are everywhere. I'm sure you see people all the time who use a cane or a walker. Do you even see them as disabled? Do they see themselves as disabled? When you look at the average workplace or public transportation, do you see people with wheelchairs or visually impaired people? What determines which disabled folks are seen and which aren't? If you look around and don't see disabled people, one of the most common reasons is that there are so many barriers to disability in our world. Some barriers are obvious: stairs, but no ramps; escalators, but no elevators; a lack of interpreters for the deaf; places that exclude autistics because they're noisy or smelly and cause sensory overload. Some disabilities are invisible. Chronically ill folks and people with mental illness experience many barriers to living their lives in our society. Sometimes the reason disabled people are not seen is the result of some common attitudes toward disability, that people with disabilities are less capable, less intelligent, less appropriate, are messy, are hard to understand, or difficult to deal with, are not worth the trouble. These attitudes are called ableism. Thinking deeply about disability and ableism has helped me to understand that by labeling disability as bad and undesirable, we are giving ourselves permission to treat disabled people as though they don't belong, that they are a burden, that they are disposable. To rephrase this personally, that my life could be seen as disposable, as though I am not important or capable or believed to be better off dead. This is not a conjecture, it's a reality. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been reported in the news media that hospitals in the US and the UK have refused disabled patients treatment for COVID because their lives are judged to be less valuable than those of able-bodied people. Insurance companies often deny health coverage to people who have pre-existing conditions. Is this fair? I know that my family values and depends on me just as much now as they did before I became disabled. Is it fair to them that my life could be devalued because of my disability? Is it fair to me? Ableism means that disabled people have a much more difficult time finding employment. The barriers, both physical and attitudinal, ensure that a disproportionate number of disabled people worldwide live in poverty. And according to Wikipedia, 50% of disabled people around the world cannot afford health care. as opposed to 33% of all able-bodied people, meaning that the people who need healthcare support the most are least likely to get it. This systemized ableism means that many disabled people do not receive medicine, equipment, and care that would help them live better lives. The assumption that disability is bad prevents many people from seeking and using assistive technology like hearing aids, canes, leg braces, walkers, and wheelchairs, even when they do have access to them. Adaptive devices can keep us safe as we age, but ableism causes people to be afraid to be seen as disabled. Assuming that disability is bad affects people with disabilities throughout their lives, whether they're born disabled or become disabled later in life due to injury, illness, or aging. Assuming disability is bad allows us to think that a disabled child might be better off not having been born, and it certainly makes it difficult to move gracefully into the changes that disability brings to our lives as we age. So I would like to remove bad from the perception of disability, because then we can start looking at the reality of living with a disability without prejudice, from the perspective of doing our best with what we've got. Recently, I became an ambulatory wheelchair user after years of needing assistive devices to walk. Ambulatory wheelchair use means that I voluntarily use a wheelchair, that ultimate symbol of disability, to make my life easier and better. The idea that a wheelchair defines how disabled one is deeply ingrained in us. Disabled people may be described as confined to a wheelchair, but the reality is absolutely the opposite. Those who need to use a wheelchair all of the time for mobility are not confined, but freed by the chair to actually get out and participate in life. Disabled people like me, who can walk but find walking painful and limiting, are liberated by wheelchairs. I can't tell you what a relief it is to get into my chair and move quickly again. It is such a joy to be able to carry things myself, to browse in a shop, or just sit comfortably when I'm out in my wheelchair. In my wheelchair, I feel able again. So let us consider the idea that disability and disabled lives are good, not a tragedy, not a disaster, but good, healthy, and fulfilling even. How can our world imagine this? Unitarian Universalists can lead the way because our first principle, which is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, states very clearly that disabled lives are worthy. And there are even disabled people who consider their disability to be a good thing. Stephen Hawking was quoted as saying that his disability freed him from the distractions of academic life and allowed him to concentrate better on his work. When I was in college, I had a friend, a quadriplegic from a construction accident, who celebrated the anniversary of his accident as his rebirth day, because he had been on the path to drug addiction and self-destruction before his accident. He saw his disabled life as a second chance and a redemption. The point is, you can't determine a person's quality of life by looking at them, and no one can determine a person's quality of life except the person themselves. The idea that it is better to be able-bodied than disabled is not a sustainable belief for me anymore. I can't choose a better non-disabled life. So instead, I've decided that my disabled life is a good life, to enjoy the support of my family and friends, and not to feel that I'm a burden to them, but know that I'm important to them no matter what. To take things a step further, I think it's important to say that you can be disabled and proud. Like any pride movement, disability pride is pushback against the misconceptions people have about disability. To be proud of disability helps us to take up the space we deserve in society, to question ignorance, to proclaim capability and worth. Pride also helps us to understand and celebrate our intersection with other pride movements, because Black, Indigenous persons of color, LGBTQ plus folks, women, and other groups can be disabled too. Before I finish, I want to say that I've written this from my own perspective as a disabled person. I've read a lot about disability, learned so much from disabled folks that I follow on Instagram, and from disabled people I've known. Raising an autistic son has taught me a lot over the years, but my personal experience with disability is very different to his. And every single disabled person has their own lived experience of disability that evolves as they live. Every disabled person's perspective is unique and valid, and we don't all see disability in the same way. So as a friend and a member of this beloved church community, I'm going to ask you to reframe your thinking about disability. As you encounter people with disabilities, disabled friends and family, or experience your own body becoming less able with injury or age, consider whether it's the disability that's the problem or the constructs and barriers in our world that prevent a full 15% of all people to participate fully because of disability. Please wonder why there are still inaccessible areas in our church, why you don't see more disabled people in your workplaces, why there are stairs but no ramps into restaurants and public buildings. When Joe Biden acknowledged disability in his presidential acceptance speech, it filled me with so much hope and joy. So as we work to dismantle systemic racism, sexism, and homophobia from our world, please do also include removing barriers to disabled people. Thanks very much to Reverend Lane for giving me this opportunity to share my perspectives. Thanks for listening.
Wow, what a gift. Thank you, both Lisa and Ericka, for the ways that you are calling us in to honoring interdependence and to honoring our interconnectedness. Thank you for the ways that you are calling us into relationship and to really reframing the questions and asking the questions differently. I just love the ways that that complements our story this morning from Sonia Sotomayor, just perfectly. What are the questions that we're asking? Oh, dear ones, as we just soak in this gift, this amazing gift that has been given to this congregation, to this community, to this gathered community, I want to invite us to sing. And we are going to sing our final hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. This is a favorite of Brock and mine. So we'll invite you to remain muted and to sing out joyfully from your home, honoring all that is our lives as we sing together from wherever we find ourselves. Friends, as we extinguish our chalice flames, both here in our sanctuary at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, I'll invite you to say along with me our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Dear ones, I will invite you to just reach out to the edge of your Zoom screens, turn your view into gallery view so that we can see everyone here who is gathered, so that you can look upon the faces of this congregation, both those of us who are living with disabilities and those of us who are temporarily able-bodied. Let us see the ways that we are connected now across seeming divides. Friends, as we go forth this morning, may we answer this call towards intersectionality, towards interconnectedness, towards honoring relationship. May we answer this call towards ways to be in better community with one another. May we answer this call to look outside beyond our walls. May we answer this call to reframe the questions. May we answer this call to honor and fight for the many universes contained in all of us. Friends, may you know that you are loved, and may you go forth and bring that love to whomever you may interact with and meet with this week. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. As we close our time this morning, I want to invite you to type into the chat, "I embrace disability justice," as we sit back and enjoy our postlude from our fabulous music director, Rock Cheswold.